Okay, we're back, and we have a gentleman with a storied career. I am proud to introduce Rory Moore, who's here to talk about CommNexus today. Welcome, Rory.
Good afternoon.
So, tell us a little bit about CommNexus and what you do.
Well, CommNexus is a high-tech association in San Diego that's supported by the tech sector. And one of the highlights of what we do is provide San Diego with a completely pro bono tech incubator.
Wow. Pro bono tech incubator. So you have a technology that we have a technology that you like. You're going to take us in and take us from start to finish.
Well, we'll take you from start until you achieve basically the trajectory to leave the incubator funded on your own, out of the nest, more chance of surviving.
Mm-hmm.
When you leave the incubator after about 2 years, a year and a half to 2 years, you'll have your team built out. You'll have some intellectual property established. You'll have your product completed, maybe some early customer traction, and you'll have raised enough capital to survive on your own at least for a while.
Wow.
So our job is to really basically get you launched and give you the best chance of survival once you've left the incubator.
So that's not just from infancy to undergraduate. That's almost like infancy to, getting your undergraduate degree, just to use the timeline of, raising children. I mean, you take them from infancy and you're taking them all the way through the undergraduate degree. Roy's looking at me like, what are you talking about, lady?
I know.
But that's far more extensive than I actually even realized. And I've been a big fan of what y'all been doing for a few years. How did you get involved in this?
Well, I've done about 10 startups in my career, and 6 of them failed. 4 of them were successful, and very difficult when you're alone in a garage somewhere with 2 guys and the dog trying to start a company. And we don't have the advantages here in San Diego that you do in the Silicon Valley, where you have terrific infrastructure of capital, strategic partners on every street corner, lots of areas to recruit, great universities that make it easy for tech transfer, like Stanford and others. So San Diego's a tougher environment to grow a company. We have all the elements here, but we don't have the advantages of the valley. So we need something to give us a leg up for the startups, and that means that our startups have to be further along than the ones in the valley. Because if you're a venture capitalist funding a startup that's about the same as one down here, you're going to choose one in the valley. It's a lot easier to manage a portfolio in your own backyard than it is,
Right.
down in San Diego. So our job is to get these companies to a level where they can attract institutional funding, high net worth angel funding, and really happy that we have today with us, where is that? There we are, Urban here today. So Urban, I know I have a place where you can park some money. Let me know.
Okay.
And this has been something that's been a passion for mine for many years, and it's one where I can give my experience and that of the organization to these startups.
So if somebody has a startup idea and they want to be a part of the incubator, what's the process they need to go through?
It's like American Idol. Anybody can apply. We have a website you go to, you send in your application, and you send us your business plan and apply. We've had over 609 applications so far in the last 3.5 years. We admit less than 1 in 10.
Mm-hmm.
Very difficult to get in. And once you're in, after due diligence and meetings, then we do everything we can to make you successful, including monthly operational reports, mentoring, assisting you in every conceivable way to make you successful. And if while you're in the incubator, your technology's not working, the team's imploding, we ask you to leave. It's very Darwinian.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What are some examples of successes in specific companies as well as maybe industries and types of technologies?
We reached most of the industries in San Diego, which is one of the strengths of San Diego because we've always had a very strong life science sector here with pharma and medical devices and genomics. And, with General Instruments and at Qualcomm and Motorola, the big wireless companies that have grown up here, we see a real convergence of wireless communications and life science. And that's all coming together now and converging. So the companies in our incubator are a conglomeration of those. We don't have the facilities to incubate a life science company in pharma. We don't have wet lab facilities, but everything but that. So the companies in our incubator are a real variety of various companies, from semiconductor, software, hardware, genomics, medical devices. It's really all the above except for something that requires wet lab space.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about. I understand that your funding model for the incubator is a little bit different than others. Tell us a little bit about that.
The funding is provided entirely by corporate here in San Diego.
Wow.
And my board of directors consists of the folks that run tech in San Diego, the big companies, Qualcomm, Sony, LG, Viasat, Entropic, Peregrine, Verizon, and they all provide sponsorship support to the broader organization CommNexus. And we use their sponsorship dollars to do pro bono things for the community, the tech community, such as the incubator. That's why when a company enters the incubator, it costs nothing to enter. It costs nothing while they're there. They pay us absolutely nothing. Fully furnished facilities, bandwidth, utilities.
Wow.
It's all provided free. And when they graduate from the incubator, they pay us nothing. They owe us nothing. No equity, no warrants, nothing.
Wow.
You know, this is really great. You know,
That is like winning American Idol.
San Diego has a long history of incubators. I can remember in the early 70s when they had them from South Bay. SBA funded one in Mira Mesa at one time on Miramar Road, and even up in Oceanside. And generally they were by government money or something, and it wound up being a management tool that you paid rent for. And when someone was unable to pay rent, they went broke, and they shut down or couldn't pay their debit ceiling. And it was it conceived correctly but managed poorly.
Well, you mentioned government. That's really a very tough area to work in right now. Everyone's after government dollars and foundation dollars and endowments. So there's a long line of people with great causes going after those funds. What matters most to companies like Sony, LG, Viasat, Qualcomm, and others is a really healthy ecosystem here. The last thing that the new CEO of Qualcomm wants to see in 5 to 10 years under his new watch, Steve Mollenkopf is the new CEO coming in March, is it's still a Qualcomm town.
Right.
You know, and that's a real threat. So the last thing they want to see is not enough startups. We need to create that food chain. Just like in the ocean, there has to be a food chain here. And so that's why the companies are building out the incubator, helping more companies are starting up. They become potential acquisitions, access to new technology, and they also grow jobs. So it's hard to attract talent and keep talent in San Diego when a really bright engineer coming out of UCSD or SDSU is being recruited by Google or Apple or whatever, or Cisco.
Right.
And they go look around and all they see is Qualcomm. So there's not a lot of options out there. So they end up going to areas where there's more options if things don't work out with company A or B. So we've got to keep the best and brightest here, and that means an entire ecosystem.
This is a great story. You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business here on KFSD AM 1450 and Financial News and Talk.com. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here with my co-hosts Andrea Kay and Urban Miaris, and our guest, Rory Moore from CommNexus. So, Rory, I love this story. Okay, you're sitting here. We're all about San Diego. We want to create a better San Diego. You're helping to do that. You're helping create companies. You're helping create jobs. Tell us about some of your success stories.
Well, I'll name a couple. I forgot to mention one very famous one. One of our first companies in the incubator was a company called Eco ATM. And they came to us literally as a cardboard box idea with some great engineering talent behind it out of the semiconductor world, and indicated they had a way of creating a fully automated kiosk that would recycle electronics remotely.
Right.
And this would be a kiosk that you would slide your cell phone into the chamber. It would hook up to the device. It would recognize what it was, do an appraisal on it, electrical testing, optical testing, and then ask you if you wanted to sell it. It's like Coinstar.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, as a matter of fact, Coinstar purchased Eco ATM.
Wow.
The company was in our incubator for 2 years. There was $28 million paid in capital on it, and the investors got 11-to-1 return in 3 years on their money.
Wow.
11-to-1.
Oh, nice.
That's
So
incredible.
it sold for
Sicky now.
$350 million cash.
Wow.
And best of all, besides creating great wealth here with the founders and the employees, Coinstar kept the company in San Diego, and now they have close to 400 employees. And this all
Wow.
happened in under 5 years.
That's great.
Unbelievable
Well, I have
success
a
story.
great offer for you. Okay, whenever you have your next great success story, send them down to us. We want to do it, take them on air,
Yeah.
and help you tell their story. So what else? Who else have you brought to market?
Okay, we talked about some earlier stage ones. These are companies that are in incubation or recently graduated. One of them is in incubation now, which is creating some foundational breakthrough technology for gene sequencing. San Diego is known for gene sequencing with big companies like Illumina, Life Technologies, which was acquired by Thermo Fisher last week for $14 billion. So this whole area of genomics has been really big in San Diego. So now we're seeing startups start to develop with technology that the big companies can't move on fast enough. And we have a company in our incubator in UTC, in one of the Irvine properties, called Edicode Genome. And these are microprocessor architects coming out of CommNexus and Broadcom and Qualcomm, matched up with genomics experts to create the world's first genomics microprocessor.
Wow.
So gene sequencing now is done with racks of servers and general purpose Intel processors and cloud computing, distributed computing. And they've developed a chip that reduces much of the mapping and sequencing down to a single chip in a single device that will be on a desktop in a doctor's office. So if you look at decreasing the cost and increasing the speeds of analysis of a genome sequence, and it makes it easier to discover links between DNA sequence variations in human disease at a cost point that's under $500.
Wow.
That's crazy.
This is crazy.
Yes.
That is crazy.
So these are technology companies with serial entrepreneurs, some of the best and brightest engineers in San Diego that are incubating. Thus, it's very hard to get in our incubator because
Right.
you've got to have more than just a great idea.
Right.
You've got to have a great team. You've got to have a plan. You've got to be able to show us that you have the ability to get there and not come to us with just a whiteboard concept.
Right.
Right. Well, we're starting to run short on time. Rory, why don't you tell
Dang
our
it, we
listeners?
could have Rory
I
here
know.
for like
we could
2
go on
weeks of shows.
forever. Tell our listeners, I guess there's two types of things we want to put out. One is if you have a great idea and you want to talk to CommNexus, how do we find you? And how do we get in touch with CommNexus?
Well, granted, we have programs all the time. Go to commnexus.org, COMMNEXUS. We have all kinds of programs for all kinds of areas. So it's if you're looking for semiconductor people to network with, we have programs for semi people and life science people. If you've got a startup and you want a sanity check on your startup, we have a program called Next Stage. We call it 2 hours of tough love. So if you come to us with an idea, we'll get some people in the room, close the door, and we may tell you to keep your day job.
You're going to do a Simon Cowell, speaking of American
Literally,
Idol.
but we don't
True.
advertise what the results were. Keep it in the room, or we may say, like EcoATM, darn good idea,
Right.
and here's what you should do. So that's free, totally pro bono for the community. So there's lots of ways to interact with CommNexus, and if you feel like you're ready for prime time, and you've got an application that you think might enter the incubator, submit it.
Wow.
So great.
God
Well,
love you what you're doing over
Rory,
there, Rory.
we have a lot to talk about. I'm going to talk to you offline. We're getting ready for a break. Thanks for being with us. You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business, where we get up close and personal with homegrown San Diego businesses and the people that are working to make a difference in their community. This is financialnewsandtalk.com. I'm your host, Barry Waxler. We'll be right back after the break with more homegrown business Close Up. And we have with us Richard Montano.